Kyle Russ here with Hydromind. On this episode of the Hydromind podcast, I'm going to be telling you how the biggest beatings of my lifetime in the ocean led to the greatest leaps forward in my life and how you can do the same thing. What's up? Welcome back to the Hydromind podcast. I'm just on the road right now, headed on a surf trip. It's the first surf trip I've taken in a while. We had our second baby born in March, so I was planning on being away for a while anyways. We were supposed to be taking a couple trips since the quarantine happened, but that got in the way. So this is actually the longest I've been without surfing, and I don't know, over 10 years anyways, but I'm not worried about it at all. All the training systems I have in place are going to ensure that are going to be great trips no matter what happens. So I'm on the drive right now. I got the surfboards in the back, and I just want to tell you a little story here now that I have some time with you. So, first story, time I almost drowned. So, when I grew up surfing since I was really, really young. But then when I got into, I was always in shape just naturally, right? I never worked out. I wasn't into fitness and all that stuff. I would just go out and surf for as long as I wanted without ever getting tired. I could get held down and it would never be a problem, all that stuff with no effort, just because you know how kids have tons of energy. I was always like that. Then when I got into my teenage years, I started drinking more, and then when I got into my 20s, I was drinking a lot. I was a heavy drinker, partying like crazy, going wild, and at that time, it was awesome. Like, you know what I mean? That's the time to act crazy, but I wasn't looking after my body and all that stuff. Me and my friends would still go on surf trips, but we'd usually go on camping trips to these remote spots, and I would surf. So it would always go like this every single time. We'd get to the spot, we'd set up camp, we'd drink a ton, we'd go surfing first thing the next morning for a few hours, and then after that, we'd be partying too hard, we'd be too drunk to even go in the water after that for the rest of the trip. So I have so many surf trips that look like that in my 20s. And we would bring longboards too, because I was in great shape, and we'd usually go in the summer when the waves were a little bit smaller. So I wasn't riding the shortboard too much. But then when I turned 28, after a hard career of partying, I decided to retire. So I've actually been, I don't share this too much, but I've been sober for a little over 7 years now. But anyways, so when I first decided to get sober, I was like just a shell of myself, right? Because I hadn't taken care of my body. But instantly, I felt that calling to the ocean. Like as soon as my head cleared up, I became obsessed with surfing again. I started reading surfing magazines. I started watching all the old surfing videos I loved. I started just obsessively thinking about it. It was in my mind. It was at the front of my mind all the time. So I dusted off the old shortboard, went for a trip in the winter, and the waves were big, and it was super intense. And I was at this spot called Cox Bay, and it's a beach break, and when the swell is big, it's the longest paddle I've seen anywhere on earth. It is so far out there. You gotta paddle so hard and so long to get out to where the sets are breaking, which is way out the back, and it's a monster paddle. And anyway, so I'm sitting there on the beach, I got my shortboard in my arm, I'm looking, I'm just like, oh man, this is I'm not ready for this. But I convinced myself to paddle out anyways, because I was figured, you know what, I got my board, I'm here, worst thing that happens, I got washed back on the shore. So a little bit of lack of humility, a little bit of a lack of respect, I paddle out anyways. And so I was one of those people when I was partying that was like, I would smoke cigarettes when I drink, I only smoke when I drink, that kind of thing. But only smoking when you're drinking, if you're drinking, I don't know, multiple times a week, still a lot of cigarettes. So I've done damage to my lungs. I wasn't the breath training master that I am now. I wasn't into paddle strength courses, nothing like that. So I paddle out, and instantly, my muscles start burning. I'm not even a quarter of the way out. Just head down, gasping for air, using bad technique, just smoked, and I'm super tired. And I'm just like, you know what? I can make it. I just gotta push through. And I'm in so much pain. I push through, barely duck diving, waves are just washing over me, just flailing, it's getting ugly. So I'm like maybe 3/4 of the way out, and I am pretty much done. I've pretty much used up 90% of my energy, and I see a lull in the set, so it goes a little bit flat, and I can see like out the back, I'm just like, I can make it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna empty the gas tank, I'm just gonna go for it. So I just go for it. I wouldn't say I sprinted, but I just like summoned that last bit of energy, that last 10%, emptied the tank. So I'm finally like, oh yeah, I made it. I'm out the back. I'm in the lineup here. I can just rest. So I just I'm totally dead, laying on my board. I'm like, finally I can relax and I'm safe here. I can get back my breath. I can rest my arms and then I can catch some waves. Worst sight I've ever seen in my entire life. As soon as I get out where I think I'm past the break and I'm safe, the set of the freaking year comes in. The set of the winter. It is massive. So you see those dark lines on the horizon and I'm like, oh no. And I don't have energy to move. I'm not gonna be able to duck dive. I don't think I'm gonna be able to hold my breath. And I definitely can't sprint out to get past the break. So where I thought it was safe out at the back, I'm in the impact zone because this set was just bigger than all the rest. So first wave I take lands right directly on top of me. And I'm scared, it sucks, right? You know what I mean? You're out of oxygen. That's the last thing you want to be doing is be in a battle. And I'm not ready for it emotionally. I just come out of that stage in my life where I was giving in. You know, I was at the weakest of my life. You know what I mean? Like I said, I was a shell coming out of my hardcore partying days. And I was prepared for that. So I get held under longer than I wanted to, get thrashed. I pop back up and I'm messed up. And I can't take another one. And I remember thinking that. And so the fear starts to elevate and gets bigger and deeper into me. And then next wave comes and I'm washed back a bit so it doesn't land on me, but the white water envelops me and I'm getting smashed. And then when I'm held underwater that time, it's the first time I've ever felt that in my entire life where I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna drown. And I thought I was gonna die. And it is a scary feeling where I went from being on the beach from whatever, if I get smashed I can handle it, to going actually oh my God, I can actually die. Because when you never realize how badly you need oxygen until you're forced to go without it, and you never really realize how quickly or how easily fragile you are until you get held underwater when you're tired. And that's a super important thing, a lesson to have, because you need that humility. And that was the most important part of this whole thing for me. I didn't realize the lesson of it until later, but that became super important. I'll get back to that in a minute. But after that wave, I popped up with that fear and I was panicking, just thinking help, I need somebody help me, you know what I mean? I'm messed up and I cannot take another one. If I take another wave, I'm gonna drown. And I pop up and I look out the back. Unfortunately, it was flat. There was nothing there. But if I was dead tired before, I was a freaking corpse now. And I managed to get on my board and I laid on top of my board, but I couldn't paddle. I couldn't do anything. I just let the waves wash me in. So there's this riptide that goes along the rocks. And so the way the riptide was going, it was pulling me to the side and I was riding the white water. I couldn't steer away from the rocks. It was dragging me into the rocks and I just let it. I didn't paddle. I didn't fight it. I just laid on top of my board dead into the rocks as I slowly got washed into the rocks. And I got smashed on the rocks a bit. I got smashed. My board got dinged up a bit. But I ended up being able to climb up on the rocks pretty much incident free and I was okay. And then I was sat on the rocks it felt like hours. I don't really know how long it was. But first I was sitting there to catch my breath, but then once I was okay and I was rested again, I sat there for even longer just contemplating what had happened. So this is the beach I had learned to surf as a kid. I've surfed here carefree all my life, and I let myself get into the position and I just disrespected my body, hadn't taken care of myself, and got myself to the point where I couldn't paddle out in these waves that I wanted to surf, right? And I wasn't willing to accept that. So at that moment, I made the choice to do whatever it takes to never let that happen again. And that was actually the moment that Hydromind was born. I didn't come up with the name for Hydromind. I didn't decide to build a business. I didn't decide I was going to create all these training programs that reached all over the world to help thousands of other surfers. All I thought was I need to help me. So I decided I was going to do whatever it takes to figure out how to stay in shape for surfing, how to get back to the way I was, to have that boundless energy as a kid. And so the two lessons there are the important ones. Were humility, number one, realizing that you can die, and that builds a respect for the ocean. But at the time, I didn't understand what the word humility meant, because to me it sounded so much like humiliation, so it didn't seem like a good thing to me. But the definition I heard about humility that really helped me was humility is having a realistic view of your place in the world, meaning I'm not more powerful than the ocean, so standing on the beach thinking I can take whatever, that wasn't humble, that was egotistic. So realizing that yeah, you got to have respect for the ocean. You got to do the right things, and you got to make sure you can get better. But also that humility, realize that you can get better, can and should be getting better all the time. And then the second lesson is the respect. So respecting the power. The ocean is infinitely more powerful than you. You need oxygen to survive. You can't go very long without it. So understanding that. So that humility and respect were massive for me. Then the good part about when I was underwater, it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. That was like a clean slate. That wiped all my ego clear. Like I was just like a shell, right? Like the clean slate is a better way to describe it, because I suddenly realized all these false things that I'd made up in my mind about who I was, how strong I was, all the things I could handle were gone. And that was the biggest opportunity. You know, they say that rock bottom is the foundation you build off of. Well, that was that rock bottom for me, right? The clean slate, where it's just like, oh my God, I am not the man that I thought I was. So, and that became the opportunity to rebuild. And so I guess the third lesson in that was the commitment to do something about it. So I committed that I was never gonna let that happen again, and I wasn't going to surf mediocre waves. I wanted to surf the best waves, right? So I made the commitment to do that. And so what I did right after that was I started figuring out ways to stay in shape. And I started looking on the internet. There wasn't a ton, there was almost nothing out there at the time. This is almost 10 years ago now. And so I just started trying to figure things out on my own. I asked a bunch of people, and I got a lot of bad advice. Like I'd ask other surfers that I knew, like, oh, what can I do? Some people would say, oh no, all you gotta do is push-ups, or all you gotta do is pull-ups, or all you gotta do is sprints, all you gotta do is go swimming. Well, those are all partial answers, you know what I mean? And the first thing that I did, actually, I would go onto the elliptical and I would just sprint, because I figured it was upper body too and help. And you know what I would do? I would sprint, and I would imagine that I was getting washed on the rocks again, and that would give me that motivation, because it felt, to me originally, it felt like a lung thing, right? You know, that's what I felt I needed to fix, and that's not wrong, but it's a partial answer. And so, long story short, I knew I had to build the paddle strength system. And so I started playing with different things and like testing and trying things. Honestly, I got a paddle strength workout for any tool you can think of, any piece of workout equipment. I've created a paddle strength workout for that, because I tried everything, but I settled on the power bands that I have manufactured and I sell now, because it perfectly simulates the paddle stroke and it perfectly simulates the resistance of the water. So it's paddle strength simulation from home. So that really, really got me to that next level. I was able to surf the summer waves, right? You know, I was able to surf long sessions without getting tired, catch tons of waves and all that stuff. But I was only testing it in the summer because that was just the way the timeline worked. And so I was super confident. I thought I was back. And in comes powerful lesson number 2, taught by the ocean. So me and my wife went on a big trip to Costa Rica. It was great. It was like a 5-week trip where we rented a vehicle. We did the entire Pacific coast, brought our boards. It was before we had kids, so it was super amazing. So we started on the north side of the Pacific coast and drove all the way down. We started in Tamarindo. Tamarindo was pretty chill, catching tons of waves. Everything was all good. I'm like, oh yeah, my paddle strength workouts are killing it. I was rocking it. We ended up down on the south Pacific coast, pretty much incident free. We're at this place called Dominical, and you know how modern surf forecasting works. You can see pretty far ahead, right? And we saw this big swell coming, the swell of the trip, and we're there the day before, and it was just kind of rolling in. They were kind of chill waves, and my wife isn't a huge surfer, so she plans lots of other things to do. Which little side story here. I used to hate, everywhere I'd go was all about surfing, right? All I ever wanted to do was surfing. But I'm so grateful for my wife now, because I've seen so many parts of these other countries that I never would have even known existed if it wasn't for my wife, because she always plans all these hikes and, you know, adventure things and stuff like that. So thanks to my wife for, it used to be a problem, right? Because I'm trying to, we would go to these places, I'd want to surf for like 8 hours a day, and just like I expect her to sit on the beach and read a book or something. So so it's a balance, right? So thankful for her to helping me see these other parts of the countries. But so that's where we're at there. So we show up at the beach, and the swells just started to pick up. Not that big, so we decided to go on a little adventure hike through this cloud forest, and it was an amazing trip. So we come back the next day, and it is huge, and it's a beach break too, right? So it's a monster paddle, and with these the surf forecasting, it's like a flash mob, right? It's like boom, everyone shows up on the day, right? So there's tons of people there, but hardly anyone in the water. Almost no one paddling out. Just a couple local guys, some Costa Rican dudes are out there, and so I'm like, you know what? Same story. I'm like, I'm here. I got my board. I'm in shape. I'm paddling out. Let's go for it. So I got the muscles, but I was missing something. So the first paddle out, I wasn't able to make it. I got washed back in, get washed down the beach. There was like a huge cross rip or a current, and it wasn't working out. But after a couple tries, I end up getting into a rip tide. Probably the only reason I made it out was because in a rip, and I get ripped out so freaking far, like dangerously far. But like I've been around the ocean enough and have the awareness to know that you just paddle parallel to the beach, right? So I did that, and even when I got back later, my wife was like, what were you doing out there so far? So like I was out there. But anyways, I get out of the rip, takes a ton of energy, but I'm out far, so I gotta paddle back in, right? And so it probably takes me, oh man, at least 30 minutes to get back even to the lineup, or maybe even longer than that. Probably by the time I got ripped and back is probably an hour. And so by the time I'm starting to get back to the lineup, these sets are rolling underneath me that are like freaking the size of houses, and I'm like, and that's the fear starts kicking in. I'm like, what am I doing out here? And at this point, the only waves that are rideable are the medium-sized waves, and all the big sets, like those ones, are all closeouts. So this beach break has become unsurfable, too big. The beach break can't handle the size of a swell, and I'm out there. I gotta get back through. I gotta go through this minefield to get back to safety. So I was getting nervous because at this point it's not the paddle strength that matters, right? It's like I gotta just take them on the head. So there's no option, right? So I have to go through it. So I just slowly start rolling in. I'm hoping I can like ride one in, but it doesn't work like that. I ended up taking a bunch of waves on the head, and I don't know how to describe it too well because it seemed like it went on forever. I probably took the biggest waves of my life in a row on my head, 10 in a row. It had to be 10 massive set waves on my head before I could get back in, and I was getting held so far down and so long that like my board was tombstoning. Every wave I had to climb my rope back up, and it was pulling so hard on my leash that I don't know how my leash didn't break. Thank God for that, because I don't know if I would be able to get back in if my leash had broken. But my hip was injured so bad from my board pulling on my leash so much that I was limping for days afterwards, because that's how powerful it was. And that was another super scary time. That was that was years ago now. I don't know, that was probably 6 years ago now. Anyways, so I came back out, and I'm like, got back in shore, and I never told my wife about this story, right? She was like, she doesn't even know, because I just walked back up like everything was all cool. I'm like, it's unsurfable. And she was like, what were you doing so far out there? I was like, just a riptide, right? But really, I was just like, oh man, I'm so glad I got out of that one. But anyway, so that's when I realized the missing piece was the oxygen, right? Because I was forced to hold my breath over and over. I wasn't, the paddle strength didn't matter. So it's the missing pieces, right? So they both had to be married together. So I started studying breath training, and the very first place I went to was free diving, and free diving was great because they can teach you how to hold your breath longer. But that highlighted a missing piece on why free divers training doesn't work for surfing 100%. Is because free divers slow down their heart rate, get as calm and relaxed as they can, and take their time and chill before they do these long extreme breath holds, where surfers can't do that, right? So we have to hold our breath with our peaked adrenaline, peaked heart rate, doing it over and over with a limited rest time. So I started developing what I call stressed breath holding. So what I started doing is I would do my workouts. I would take a big inhale, take a big breath, and then I'd work out with my breath held. And that was good because I was simulating real situations, and that's valuable because you can practice having those sensations of losing your oxygen slowly so you can stay calm. You can practice using your muscles less. You can practice slowing your heart rate, keeping your emotions calm over those longer breath holds. So that has value. But what really, really changed the game is when I learned to hold my breath on an exhale. So you blow out all your air, hold your breath at the bottom of the exhale, and then do your exercises, because you don't have any oxygen to burn. You know, if you're ever in the hospital and they put that thing on your finger to test your blood oxygen levels, well, that's always at like 98 or more, right? 100 is max. And so your blood is oxygenated. So instead of having the oxygen in your lungs, when you do an exhaled breath hold, you start burning that oxygen in your blood. So that so if you had that thing on your finger and you did a workout with your breath held, exhaled, that would go down into like the 80s or whatever, right? So you're burning that surplus. So that's such a different thing, and that forces your body to adapt, because we're adaptation machines. I can't think of the guy's name right now. The guy who came up with that evolution theory. Anyways, he said, like, he came with the survival of the fittest, right? And it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. So the people or the animals in nature, the ones that survive are the ones that are able to adapt and change. And that's why humans, we rose up to create civilization and be what we are today. It's not because we weren't the fastest. There's predators out there faster than us, and we're not the strongest, but we're the most adaptable, right? We can live in all these different climates and all these different situations. We can hunt, we make tools, blah, 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 right? So we are adaptation machines. So what low oxygen training, what burning the oxygen in your blood does, it forces your body to adapt. So it'll make your body will be like, oh man, we're always low on oxygen. So your body will start to build more red blood cells. So your body will have more red blood cells when you do this consistently. And so that'll increase your oxygen carrying capacity. So you can have more oxygen in your body at one time. And it'll also increase your lung capacity. It'll increase your heart, the strength of your heart, your stroke volume, so you can pump more oxygen at one time. So it's so many different changes. So that was the game changer. So going from a inhale breath hold to an exhale breath hold changed the game. So I married that to my paddle strength system, and if you look at everything, if you look at my weaponized breath program, it's all low oxygen adaptation. How you can do it, train it in your workouts, how you can train it in your lifestyle, like in the shower, when you're driving, and extreme breath holding, emotional control. If you also look at my paddle strength workouts, that has low oxygen training as well. So it's everything, right? Because you got to be adapting. Breath training is the secret sauce when it comes to surfing performance. So it's the oxygen efficiency. So it's doing more with less. So you can have a higher work rate on less amounts of oxygen, but then also you increase the amount of oxygen coming in. So it's oxygen carrying capacity. So you have more fuel to burn, but you're making that fuel go farther, and that is the force multiplier that allows you to surf faster, surf longer, catch more waves, but catch better waves, right? And have that confidence to survive those breath holds. So the point I'm trying to make here with these two stories is those two biggest, most intense, scariest moments were the biggest leaps I've ever made in my entire life, not just fitness-wise, but as a person. So I almost drowned. I get that humility, respect. I make the commitment to get stronger and start working out. And that eventually becomes a business, right? Where I start building more freedom in my life and reaching more people. Then I add the breath training, and then all of a sudden it makes this like multiplier. Everything gets more intense, right? So so my fitness and everything, it becomes the next level that would have been unachievable without it, right? And these lessons came from surfing, but it was the work done on land that made the difference, right? Because there's people that get their ass beat in the ocean that never make those changes, that they all just stay scared, right? Because what doesn't kill you can make you weaker if you don't do anything about it, right? What doesn't kill you can make you stronger, but you have to make that commitment, and you gotta find the right path, right? You gotta have the right tools to get you through it, right? So what I want to impress upon you is that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So your beatings, I'm sure you've had them. If not, they're coming. I don't want those to make you weaker. I want you to get infinitely stronger by it. But it's if nothing changes, nothing changes. So it's what you do on land between surf sessions that matters the most. So when you get those whippings, use that as motivation to come back home, to get stronger, and so you can get out there and you can really reach your potential. And in my opinion, our potential, the only way you can reach your potential is to push yourself, to have those failures, to have those struggles, but to do something about it. You have to take that action all the time. And the ocean is the greatest teacher in that way, because when you push yourself up against the ocean, it gives you honest, unbiased feedback about what your biggest holes and weaknesses are. You get an instant report card about what you need to work on. So when you do get those beatings, when those muscles start to burn, you know those muscles need to get strengthened. When you get held underwater and you get that fear response, you need to work on your emotional control and your breath training. And that's so valuable, right? Because your friends and your family, they might love you, but they can lie to you. They can tell you, oh, you're doing great, you're doing this, you're doing that. But that's not what you need. You need the tough love of the ocean to give you that, again, that honest, unbiased feedback about where you are weak. And the ocean doesn't lie. The ocean's going to tell you straight up, and it's going to tell you right now, this is what you got to work on. And the best thing about that is, when you know where your biggest holes are, you can fill those in, and that's the path to your greatest potential. So what I want to impress upon you is that your greatest weaknesses or your greatest struggles in the ocean are going to lead to your greatest leaps in growth and your greatest potential. So your greatest potential is on the other side of that. And that's what Hydromind is really about. It's about personal development, the laws of health, success, and happiness taught by the ocean. So if you are interested in this kind of stuff, which if you're still listening, I know that you are, this is what I'm all about here. And if you've had those moments in the ocean, I 1000% can help. My systems work, the paddle strength system, the breath training, the mobility work, all that stuff is guaranteed to get you past that point. So if you've had those ass beatings in the water and you don't know what to do next, I guarantee it can help you. All you gotta do is send me a DM, tell me exactly what your story was, tell me about what happened to you, and I will tell you exactly what you need and how I can help you be the best surfer, but also the best person. And I know sometimes there's friction and barrier, like, will this work for me? Maybe I don't want to invest the money. I want to remove all those different barriers. I want to remove the money barrier, the friction that causes, the doubt. Is this guy actually telling the truth? And that's why I'm always offering up free trials. So the thing about free trials is, I know these things are going to get the results, right? So to grow this business, I've had to meet lots of business people and study business, right? And I now know that across every industry, fitness, business or info products, all that stuff, the return rate on products is on average 7 to 11%. So 7 out of 11 people out of 100 return a product on average for every industry. It doesn't matter what it is. Mine are less than 1. So it takes more than 100 people to come through my systems to even get 1 refund. So and I'm doing these free trials. So you know what that means? People get in there and they feel the results, because this stuff works. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to send me a message or send me a DM on Instagram and say you want a free trial of one of my systems, and I'll hook you up and reference this podcast, and then tell me the story about when you had a hard time in the ocean and you want to learn from that. And I'll give you a free trial of any one of my systems if you reference this podcast episode. So that's all I want to impress upon you now, is that you can be better. And because you can be better, it's your responsibility to do so, to reach your potential, and I want to help you do that. So my name is Kyle Russ, this is Hydromind. Thanks a ton for listening. And if you enjoy this kind of content, it'll do me a huge favor. Take a screenshot of your phone if you're listening to this and share it on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'll share it, give you a little bit of exposure. It'll help me grow, so it'll help this message reach the right people. And if you can, leave a comment or leave a review on iTunes as well. It'll help me help more people just like you, so we can all grow as a unit together, help getting better through surfing. All right, I'm starting to ramble now. That's all I got for today. Thanks a ton for listening. I'll talk to you next time. And remember, the swells are coming. The only question is, are you?